Good luck, guys.
Well, there's our little signature tune, and it's very happy to welcome you to this sponsored webinar from Sable International, long-time partners of ours. But I'll ask Andrew Rissick in just a moment to tell you a little more about Sable and what they're up to and what they do. But first, here's my colleague, Stuart Lohman, who will just go through all the technical details for us. Stu?
Excellent, thanks, Alec, and thanks to all the panelists who joined us today. Just quickly, those new to the webinars, we do like to check the sound and video quality. There's a little high five button on your control panel. If you can give us a high five, if you can hear my voice clearly and see 4 faces and a presentation underneath. I've got a few coming through. I need a few more just to confirm that it is, if there's any more there. Okay, I've got some coming through. There we go. Excellent. Thanks, everyone. And obviously, we like to keep the webinars very conversational. On that same control panel, there's a little questions drop-down bar. If you put your questions in there, Alec can pass them on to the relevant panelists. But it all looks good this side, Alec.
Brilliant. And those questions are important. This is a fascinating subject. I'd never heard of Montenegro before. Andrew Rissick, before I introduce the three of you, who's Sable? Just, I got a good idea, but maybe my idea could be a little off beam. Perhaps you can tell our community who you are.
Hi, Alec. Thanks very much. And it's great to be on a business webinar. Well, for business subscribers, I think a lot of you would have seen our brand banging around on the business pages and articles. But for those of you who haven't, just a brief introduction. My name's Andy Rissick. I'm the Commercial Director of Sable International. And we're a financial services and immigration business headquartered in London. We've been in business for 26 years now. We started off in the UK just after 94 when we became part of the British Commonwealth again after the 94 elections. And over time, our business has grown with our client needs. And I think a good way to describe us is we assist both individuals and their businesses and their families internationalizing themselves, their investments, and possibly even their businesses. So Sable has 4 core services. We do foreign exchange. So for those of you in South Africa, we deal with things like tax clearances, helping you with SARB approvals to move money offshore for capital investment purposes. We have an offshore wealth management business based out of London. And then we also do accounting and tax in all the jurisdictions that we operate. And then what we're talking about today is immigration. So we do nationality, normal immigration like visas, and then what we call investment migration. So today we're speaking about one of our investment migration products, and that is Montenegro. So Sable International, we help expats globally with their offshore investment and migration needs. And today we're talking about the new kid on the block in terms of the investment migration. Through an investment in Montenegro, one can actually acquire Montenegrin citizenship. So Alec, hopefully that just gives a high level of who we are. Thank you.
Indeed it does. Sandra, tell us a little about you. Your picture is now on screen.
Hi, Alex. Thanks for introducing me. I've been in the investment migration industry for nearly a decade now. I come also from a financial and legal background, and the investment migration industry got hold of me. And as a born and bred South African, knowing how difficult it can be to travel on a very restricted passport, and also creating better futures and first world class education and things for your family, and being a mom myself, I absolutely love bringing this industry to the Southern Africans. And today I will be telling you on exactly, what to do to become a citizen of Montenegro, as Andy said, one of the newest kids on the block. So I work with a lot of programs around the world, and Montenegro is indeed currently one of the favorite kids.
Thanks, Sandra. Just to bring my own relationship with Sable on the table, I met when Jeanette and I spent 3 years in London. I met with Reg Bamford, who's a South African who started Sable many years ago, and Mike Abbott, who's one of the directors there, and they were very warm and hospitable and welcoming this new Safa to very cold London as it was at that stage. But it's been a pleasure to actually be a business partner with Sable now for sure 3 or 4 years already, and it's really our pleasure to be hosting this webinar on their behalf today. But let's move on to the third of our panelists today, Brennan and Nicholas, who is on the other side of the world, I think, Brennan, or certainly you're going to be giving us some more insight into how things are looking on the Mediterranean area, given what we see on screen now. You spent a lot of time there.
Morning, Alec, and thanks very much for the introduction, and to Andrew and the team at Sable. I too am a born and bred South African, Cape Townian, and have been in Montenegro now for going on a year, so it's not a hell of a long time, but it's been an interesting year to say the least under the current circumstances. My experience goes back to the late 90s when I relocated from Cape Town to southern Spain. It was a 2-year plan that ended up being a 16-year plan, and then ended up in the Middle East, and then, as you can see on screen, I was in Portugal for a number of years as well. Traveling on a South African passport, I'd like to think that I'm more than qualified to have these sort of conversations and presentations. Montenegro is an amazing country. It's a very small country, which we'll get into in a little bit more detail later, but the program has been exceptionally well received. It is new, it's in its infancy, and we're seeing interest from all over the globe. In fact, one of our key markets at the moment, other than South Africa, is the US, to be funny. And it's a strange phenomenon, but there's a lot of US interest in the Montenegrin citizenship.
Fascinating stuff. Well, the way we're going to work this, and we do already have the question bar open, so if you'd like to, yes, Abdul, we have started. If you'd like to pose any other questions, they're there. So just to have a look at that little question mark that's on your screen, and you can just type away. We're going to go through a presentation, about 10 or so minutes. Thereafter, we'll be putting your questions to the 3 experts here. But Andrew, I think we're gonna start with Brennan, kicking us off with this magnificent. It looks so almost idyllic place to live, Brennan. Is it just tell us a little about where your house is in the screen here?
Well, I'm just over the hill. So if you look behind the cruise ship, that's a little image of Kotor, which is, we're in the bay of, it's called Boka Bay, and it's almost equivalent to a fjord. It's not a fjord, but it's the closest thing that you'd find to it. It leads in from the Adriatic, so between Italy and the East European coast. Montenegro is just south of Croatia. It's a tiny country, population of around 650,000. It's, well, there you go, 642. It's geographically centered between Serbia, Bosnia, Albania, Croatia, as I said. I won't say it's now one of the new destinations, but it is aesthetically, it's incredibly beautiful. It's mountainous, it's got the water. It doesn't have the island life that Croatia offers, but it's a slightly more, I'd like to say, friendly environment than Croatia. The people are incredibly friendly. The countryside, as I said, is fantastically gorgeous. There's a lot of similarities between Montenegro and some of the South African coastline. So I personally find it an incredibly interesting place to live. It's not that difficult to get to. You're probably 2.5 hours from most European cities. In summer and outside of the current circumstances, you're getting major flights from all destinations in Europe. There's a Fly Dubai flight daily into Tivat, which is 5 minutes away from where we're based. So accessibility is great. Private jet airports, there's 3 main airports that you would come into, as you see on the screen: Tivat, Podgorica, and Dubrovnik. Podgorica is the capital of Montenegro now. It's actually flying in, depending on how you're coming, but flying into Dubrovnik is a little bit closer, even though you've got to cross the border from Croatia into Montenegro. Podgorica by car to Tivat is around 1 hour and 20 minutes or 1.5 hours, whereas Dubrovnik's an hour. The Tivat airport is a tiny, tiny airport. It does accommodate private jets, and it accommodates a lot of commercial, as we said earlier, from most European cities in the UK as well. So accessibility is great. We have, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but we have the largest super yacht marina in the region. So we've got a lot of traffic comes in by boat. So there you go.
There are a few questions for you already. If you don't mind, I'll just throw them in so
Sure.
we can set the scene. Denise Kemp wants to know, what language do they speak?
Montenegrin, Serbian, and Russian are the main languages, but a lot of English. You'll find with the younger generation, most Montenegrins will speak 4 or 5 languages. So English is very, very easily. If you're going into certain parts of the country where it's a little bit more remote and the population's a little bit older, you do tend to struggle, but you do make yourself understood. So language is not a problem.
Yeah, Mike Dutoy had a similar question. He said, many different nationalities, language must be a huge challenge. You say not. Because I could just imagine having to try and learn Russian must be quite a challenge. Evelyn Hersfeld asks, and feel free, Brendan, to pass this on to one of your colleagues. If one already has an EU passport, what sort of amounts would be required to emigrate to Montenegro? I guess we're going to talk about that later.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Michael's got one, and Harold's got one. Harold says, can one get by or live easily? Only being able to speak English. I think you've answered that one already. So we'll be bringing up more of the questions in a moment, but I think, Sandra, it's your turn to take us through the attractions of Montenegro.
Thank you, Alex. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more specifically on the legal side and getting the citizenship and the passport. And Montenegro is currently one of the programs that is growing really, really fast. The first applicants got their citizenship February this year after the program was launched end of last year. So once we start the paperwork, for you to actually get residence in Montenegro can take as little as 3 weeks. And then to get to the stage of citizenship and having the passport in your hand takes about 6 months. You would have to visit Montenegro to do the biometrics for your passport. So it would definitely take a trip, and I mean, who wouldn't want to take a trip to Montenegro? One of my clients the other day said that Montenegro is becoming pretty much a more affordable Monaco. So again, it's a beautiful country. As Brendan said, language is not really a problem. A lot of my clients have already visited Montenegro on holiday, and everybody gets along, especially in the cities, with English. You can have dual citizenship, as I like to call it, multi-citizenship. There's no restrictions on having Montenegro citizenship for a South African. There is a little form that we fill in at Home Affairs just to inform them that you will become a citizen of another country. But that's something that it's a form you fill in. It's not really, you don't need their permission. You just need to notify the South African government. On both sides, dual citizenship can be done. Then Montenegro is a member of NATO. and the passport in Montenegro can give you visa-free travel to 123 countries. Now, for a South African, this is major. This includes the Schengen area, so it's a lovely travel document to have, especially for yachties and for business people that really needs to travel any given time. And we all know what a hassle and time-consuming exercise it can be to apply for visas. And these days, the Schengen area is quite strict on giving a 3 or a 10-year open multi-entry Schengen visa. So having a Montenegrin passport is really, really a very practical tool to have. With this application, of course, in Montenegro, you can live, work, your kids can study anywhere in Montenegro. And as Brendan said, traveling from Montenegro to the rest of Europe is really, really easy. Montenegro has applied to join the EU, and according to the head of the EU Commission, Montenegro is first in line to actually join the EU, and they're very much in favor of having Montenegro join the European Union. And once they do, which will be considered in 2025, once they do join the EU, then you and your family will have full European citizenship, which would, of course, then open the whole of Europe to your family to live, work, and study then anywhere in Europe. Montenegro citizenship, Montenegro is also one of the few countries that has a treaty with the United States. So once you have citizenship with this passport, you can actually move your family to the United States by making a small investment. By law, there's no minimum amount that you need to invest. The requirement for an E2 visa is that you create 2 jobs. So I've had professionals on other countries that also offers EU treaty that have simply moved their practice, such as an optometrist and a dentist. They've made an investment in opening a practice. They've employed 2 people in their company, and on these bases, they could move their family to the United States. So this, again, adds real value for the South African to the Montenegro passport. So for a lot of people, they can't afford the American program, so they would use a Montenegrin passport to actually get a foot in the US. So again, then your children will have US residents and probably citizens going forward, but they will also be citizens of the EU. So great document to have. The qualification investment that you need to do on either the 2 of the 2 investment requirements, there is a government contribution that you need to do of 100,000 euros. Now this compared to the other European citizenship programs is a small fraction of the price that they ask for a government contribution that Montenegro would ask. And considering there's no language test, there's no renewal residence period that you need to go to, there's no minimum days that you have to spend over a period of 5-6 years, as a lot of the Schengen areas actually require. You go straight to citizenship. This contribution is pretty much in line with the cost that it would have cost you to do the residence over a 5-year period. So I'm happy for my clients to actually do that. The 2 investment requirements is one of 2. You either can invest in government-approved development on the coastal line or Podgorica, the capital, and that would be for 450,000 euro, which Brendan will give us more information on specific development that we consider that is really good development and good investment. The other option is a 250,000 euro investment. Quite frankly, I would say your rental return on these investments might not be as great as the coastal investment. That is more in your mountainside, which during summer there will be mountain hiking, and in winter it would be more ski resorts and skiing. So coastal property, if it was me, would be my more preferred investment. But those are your 2 options that you need to invest with your government investment. Of course, there's government processing fees, application fees, there's due diligence. Montenegro does a really high due diligence on their clients. They will not allow anybody to just apply for citizenship. You need to do a police clearance, and they will check your criminal record. They will do a clearance of source of funds. And then with the professional fees, that's basically your cost for applying to the Montenegro. In this slide, you will find an idea of what the application and processing fees are and the due diligence for a family. On a property of 450 investment, for a family, your cost would come to about 605,000 euros plus professional fees to apply for Montenegro citizenship.
Well, the good news is we aren't losing people. They aren't being scared by the 600,000 euros. So we've obviously we're talking to the right audience, but I'm sure you don't actually have to get the cash up front. There must be a way of putting deposits down, Sandra.
I think on the property side, Brendan would basically be able to give us more information, but of all of these programs, the cash flow needs to flow into the country. What a lot of my clients have done is they have used property and security at home to actually use that as security to take out maybe a second bond on property, use that then to invest in European property. Clients of ours over the years that not only for citizenship application purposes, but for investing in Europe, excuse me, have used security at home to do finance in order to purchase property in Europe. And I work with clients that bank with most of the major banks, and none of them have ever had a problem to do that. So there are ways and means to get that money together. And if I look at the investment in Montenegro, I live in Cape Town, and I look at what property these days are at the waterfront. I don't think Montenegro property is overpriced, really.
So it's not going to scare people from Cape Town. It might scare those of us in Johannesburg, where property prices have dropped 30%, they tell us, during the lockdown period. My friend's in his state. That's what he tells me. Well, but anyway, we'll be talking in just a moment now to Brendan, I think, Brendan rather, to bring us up to date with exactly what all of this is about. I did mute you, your speaker just for a minute, Brendan, so, because I think we were getting a little bit of feedback, and I'll be doing the same with Sandra now. But when we get into questions, everybody will be unmuted. So over to you, sir.
Right. Alec, what is important for the audience to understand and to know, in Montenegro, unlike a lot of the other programs, the government actually do a lot more proactive regulation. So a developer that is offering the citizenship property has to be qualified, accepted, and then licensed. So it's unlike in, let's use another example, the Golden Visa program. You can buy any property to a certain value and you qualify for the Golden Visa. Here, you have to buy a specific product. It's very product specific. So we are the first development in the South that has qualified and has government approval and authority to do the passport program. Now, to give you a bit of insight into Porto Montenegro, because the country is an incredibly young country anyway, and the development side of Montenegrin and resort developments is a relatively new concept. We were started around 13 years ago by a Canadian visionary, a billionaire called Peter Monk. He bought what was a military shipyard and had this vision that he was going to turn it into a destination. He didn't mentally say, well, it's going to be the next Monaco, it's going to be the next Saint-Tropez or Cannes, or whatever the case may be. He went off and said, I see this as a destination for super yachts, for yachts, and not only for the rich and famous. Quality of life and cost of living is incredibly, incredibly good. So cost of living is very, very low. Quality of life is exceptionally high. So Porto Montenegro started in the mid-2000s. It was developed along the marina. So the concept was build the marina and then build the real estate into that. So the product that you see there on that marina is all waterfront, and it's all luxury, high-end real estate. We have a massive piece of land that works its way around and slightly backwards towards the mountain, away from the sea, which we're now developing. And to give you a little bit more insight, ICD, which is the Investment Corporation of Dubai, the Sovereign Wealth Fund, bought Porto Montenegro and the marina lock, stock and barrel 3 years ago. So currently we've sold more than 300 units. They sold, occupied, etc. They work, and they used. The destination is to a large extent pretty seasonal. So unlike in the north, where it is very, very quiet during summer, and you have an influx of people going to ski in winter, the south it's a little bit more lengthy in the season. So May to end of September, beginning of October, the weather is fantastic, and it keeps going through October, November, then it'll start turning. So seasonality does play a certain part in the destination, but what we've now done is the product that qualifies for the passport, which we'll get into, is a slightly lower end investment value, but it's a higher end citizenship offering. So generally the mentality for developers has been, well, in the north it's 250, in the south it's 450, so we'll build according to that. Our model and our thought process was never around that. We're building a neighborhood. So there'll be a new 5-star Kerzner operation hotel. There'll be a lot of food and beverage, a lot of retail, a lot of commercial, and then 2 elements of real estate. You've got managed real estate, which works into the hotel, into the citizenship play, and then you've got privately managed and privately owned. Well, the ownership is the same. You own title and you own the property, but it's managed by either the hotel or privately. So that is where the big play comes in and where the big difference comes in for the citizenship. And that's where I see, particularly for the South African market, there will be an interest, because not only will they have the asset appreciating, to have the asset working for themselves, and the added benefit of the passport. So there's a number of little angles there.
Brendan, we've got quite a lot of questions, but I don't want to let this opportunity pass by. Peter Monk, many South Africans probably never heard of him, but he's the man who started Barrick Gold.
Correct.
I had lunch with him a few times in New York.
Oh, wow.
One of the, I'm not sure if he's still alive. He was certainly quite old.
He passed away about 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, wonderful guy, and obviously getting to know him a little bit, he is an absolute genius when it comes to property development. So to hear that he did, sure, okay. So, but anyway, South Africans would know Barrick Gold because of the gold price going through the roof at the moment as well. Lots of happy people, and of course now it's Barrick Newmont and run by a South African from Escort in KZN. We can talk about that another time. Anyway, okay. Do you want to carry on there? I think let's get through the presentation. We do have a lot of questions though, and I'm sure that we can pick those up in just a moment.
Okay, well, just very briefly, a high-level approach on Bokke Place. Bokke Place is, unlike the other development, which is real estate positioned on the marina front, and it's just apartment after block after block along the waterfront, which is great, and it's, as I said, it's all sold out and all very, very successful. Bokke Place is, we've just launched it. It was never, as I said earlier, designed to be a citizenship product. We do qualify, and we have qualified based on the fact that we had the hotel, we had the capacity, and we had all the criteria. So we thought it was an added value. If you flick to the next screen, let's just have a quick. Okay, so as I said, two sections: managed residences and private residence. That CGI that you see there would be a typical managed residences. The hotel concept, and it's a great concept, is built around fitness, wellness, and health and well-being. So The hotel has 1,800 square meter wellness center with cryogenic tanks, etc., etc. On the roof, we've got a 25 meter swimming pool with a retractable roof, which gives you all year round training capacity and ability for swimming. We're looking at using the hotel to extend the seasonality and to extend the desirability of the destination. So looking into athletes, sports personalities, sports clubs, football clubs, etc., etc., they can come here for summer training or winter training, performance training, conditioning, rehabilitation, etc. So it'll give you that added extended to the season. So the product is, to me, it's a complete no-brainer. Kerzner have the reputation. We've got the backing of the Investment Corporation of Dubai. The current investment value that we've got in the project is around 650 million. The future investment value that we've got approved as we sit here and speak is another 750 million US. So the project is not just going to be Bucker Place and these 213 apartments in the hotel, etc. There's a lot more to it. We've got a school that we own on site, which is an English curricula, and Knightsbridge School. We've got 124, I think it is, students, some boarding students and some local students. We're opening businesses and business centers. So we're looking at it as a destination. It's not just a place that you come and have an apartment. You can actually come and live and work and function here as an individual, as a couple, as a family. It's a very different offering to what is else or out there that would compete. Just a quick thing that the South Africans would find very, very interesting and attractive: 9% corporate tax, 9% personal tax. So it's not a bad place to earn money and to set up a business and operate from as well.
That's for sure. 9%. We're 28 for the moment. We hope we stay there. Well, there on screen, you've got the email address, im@sableinternational.com, and of course the Cape Town phone number. But let's get into the questions, if we may. Evelyn Hertzfeld says, if one already has an EU passport, what sorts of amounts would be required to emigrate to Montenegro?
Well, if I was to answer that question, the simple scenario is there's no threshold as an EU citizen. You don't need any amount of money to come in. If you bought an apartment anywhere, you could become a resident. You don't, the passport is the one that is linked to the product, but as an EU citizen, you can come in tomorrow, buy something. In fact, I think now, and I need to check this, but I think you can rent and get residency off a rental contract as well.
Michael Mayer wants to know, can one live in other EU countries on this passport?
I will jump in there. No, currently, until Montenegro does or are allowed to join the EU, you can only live in Montenegro, but in the Schengen area on that passport, you can travel 90 out of any given 180 days. So that would not just give you a work permit or study permit in any of the other EU countries. If they join after 2025, then things would change. That would be then a year.
Sandra, we're getting a little bit of feedback. I just want to double check on this because it's quite significant that I heard you properly. You can't live elsewhere in the EU, but you can travel for 180 days on a Montenegrin passport.
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay, Bo Dial says, what are the country's requirements to settle in Montenegro? Do you want to just summarize that again quickly for us?
Me or Sandra? What's the country's requirements to settle? It depends on what you're doing. Are you coming in to buy property to get the passport, or are you coming in to settle down and rent it? I mean, I have obviously I've got a job, I've got a rental contract, and I'm a resident. Coming in as an EU citizen, as I said, I think you can rent and get residency. But as a South African, to come in and settle, you would need to be able to be self-sustaining, get your visa, initial visa, get your visa upgraded to a residency. And that's the straightforward. It's a very proactive government, and it's a very open-minded government. So they are looking at various ways of boosting, number one, the economy, number two, getting a little bit more strength into the EU application for 2025. So it's not a difficult place to come into. And I speak from experience. I lived in Spain, I lived in Portugal, and the Middle East, and of the four outside of South Africa, Montenegro and the Middle East for me were the easiest places to get into and settle.
Andy, but from your perspective, from the Sable perspective, this is what you guys specialize in anyway. So I guess if anybody wants to move into Montenegro to settle, you'd be able to hold their hands.
Yeah, absolutely, Alec. And Sandra recently joined the business about 6 months ago, and we started off specializing in UK and Australia because we've got offices there. But we now offer all of the programs, and we've got an in-depth knowledge of them. So it really comes down to a conversation with us, see what the person, the individual, or the family are looking to achieve. Whether it's to physically relocate, whether it's a plan B where they continue living here, etc., etc. And then we'll come up with a solution. But we think that Montenegro specifically is really attractive in that this investment gives you citizenship. It is not a long and winding road to citizenship through a 5 or 6 year residence process, and also the language test. That there are other great programs, but they've got other requirements that, when you look at this, and I think the integration into the EU looks probable. It's not something that we can obviously guarantee, but take that aside, I just think also from a pure hedging strategy for South Africans, where they're saying, I would like to invest offshore, real estate is a asset class that I'm comfortable with, I understand. In its own right, Bokke Place stacks up. So I think that that's really, from our approach, I'm very uncomfortable with a lot of product that gets offered to South Africans, where if you look at the underlying investment, it just does not stack up. You might get residency, you might get citizenship, but if you don't, at least you've made a good investment. So that's kind of the approach that we're taking, and I think it's a very compelling offering, this one.
Arno van Wijngaarden, an old pal of mine, has asked a question I was also thinking of. Is the political situation stable between the Serbs and the Croats? To be in the Balkans there, it sounds like a pretty risky place to be.
Yeah, I mean, when I came here, a number of people said to me, "My God, you're going to the Balkans. It's unstable. It's this, it's that." Honestly, yes, there's a couple of little comments get thrown around. There's a bit of political banter between them, and it's all around election time, etc., etc. Let me put it to you: nobody locks their houses, nobody locks their cars in Montenegro. It's an incredibly safe place. Crime rate is incredibly low. Yes, you've got the Croats and the Serbs that have their arguments from time to time. I go to Belgrade on business, and it's a 40-minute flight from here into Belgrade in Serbia. It's a great city. It's a safe city. You're welcome. The people are incredibly friendly and incredibly welcoming. So would I get into a whole political debate about how stable or unstable it might be? I wouldn't, but from my perspective, I wouldn't have come and lived here. I was in Portugal. I had a great position and a great job on a great golf course, and I had less stress than I've got here. But I wouldn't get into politics, to be fair.
Well, I don't think it's smart to get into politics anywhere in the world right now, is it?
Yeah, that's true.
Mark Dutoy asks, how does the cost of living, crime cost, and quality of healthcare compare to, say, Portugal? Brendan, that's right up your street.
Right. I have, how do I put this? When I was in Portugal, I was renting a 3-bedroom apartment on a golf course. I'm now renting a 3-bedroom little stone cottage. I am probably about 45% down on my rent. Cost of living is probably, and I'm going to speculate quite accurately, I would say 50% less than Portugal. And Portugal is not an expensive place to live, depending on where you eat, etc., etc. Healthcare is one place that I would say that it needs a bit of attention. We do have a couple of hospitals locally. We do have a couple of clinics locally. We have a couple of private practices with particularly German doctors. If you were going to do anything major, you would jump on a plane and go to Belgrade or Austria or whatever the case may be. But by and large, quality of life, cost of living, and healthcare is packaged up, and it's pretty well planned, and it's getting better every day.
And of course, the South African question about crime. You mentioned no crime in Montenegro, similar to Portugal?
Yeah, I mean, I lived down south in Portugal. I did travel extensively in Portugal. I never ever saw any issues. I know that there's opportunistic crime in Portugal during the summer months, during seasons, and it's very isolated to tourism and touristic areas. And I suppose you would have the same be said here. If you came into Porto Montenegro as a South African and walked around, you would get a sense of, okay, there's a lot of security cameras, there's a lot of security presence. And why is that? Well, it's there because we have 300, 400, 500 million euros worth of yachts out in the marina. We have a lot of very, very high profile individuals that come and go. There's a lot of very, very expensive real estate. And like anything, you've got to take the necessary precaution and put the necessary positioning between you and the opportunistic. I've not heard of anything, and I speak to people, being South African and being aware, I speak to people that have been here for many years. Our marina director is Australian. He's been here for 12 years. He said to me, he lives up on the hill, pretty much where I am currently. Never ever had any issues. You don't have things like handbag snatching. You don't have things like pickpocketing. You don't have muggings. You don't have cars being broken into. So it's a very, very different way of life.
We have 15 minutes left. We have dozens, literally, of questions to answer. So I'm going to ask you guys to really be focused, if you could. Hazel Osborne asks, and this is for you, Sandra, I'm sure. Good day. If biometrics requires a trip to Montenegro under COVID, this may not be possible. What then?
Well, currently, all other countries are open, such as Montenegro and the whole of Schengen area. As a South African, our problem is to get Home Affairs to actually allow us to leave South Africa. Currently, and you can ask Andy, we are both sitting like two meerkats waiting for the airport to open and allow us to actually travel to the Schengen area, which we both hope can be done by the end of August. I have other clients that also needs to go to other Schengen countries in September. So currently, we can't really answer that question. It depends on how well the government is going to manage the COVID situation in South Africa. But as soon as we can travel, what we can do in the meantime is we can start your paperwork, and we can get everything ready. This is what all of our clients do. And as soon as they can jump on that plane, we would get them, an appointment to do all of the necessary appointments and biometrics and go sign for your bank account and do all of that during the trip. But in the meantime, nothing prohibits us from doing the paperwork and getting, doing the filing. And then it's literally just a Home Affairs allowing us to jump on a plane.
Brett Hopkins asks, is visa-free travel possible to the UK as well? I guess he's alluding to Brexit.
No. Especially with Brexit now, basically the UK has to negotiate with each of the EU countries, but currently with Montenegro being able to, as the Schengen, but not part of the EU, no, visa-free travel is not allowed.
Dave Wickham asks, does one get to stay in the property that one is investing in?
You can stay as long as you like. There's no mandatory requirement to put it into the rental program, but because it's an apartment, it's not a hotel room, but because it's part of the management of the hotel to qualify for the citizenship, if you wanted to live in it permanently, you can live in it permanently. If you want to live in it when you're coming over for 2 weeks or 2 months, you can do that. Obviously, your rental return is affected by how often you use it or you don't use it. So to give you an example, we've got a South African that's based in the States that has bought one of the units, and he will come, he's basically moving here lock, stock and barrel. He's coming over when the property is finished. He will move in and he will stay here for 365 days a year, him and his cat.
Dave's follow-up question is, how does one have to stay in Montenegro for a minimum period each year?
No requirement at all. Once you've been issued your passport, you issued your passport, and you can, whatever movement of residence you want, you can live in the UK, you can live in South Africa, or whatever your situation is.
Alan Kallenborn asks a question which I think you've already answered. The quality of medical facilities in Montenegro, you suggested anything major, you might have to go elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, if you break a leg or whatever the case may be, you've got sufficient cover. I would suggest if somebody had, God forbid, a serious car accident, 99% of the time, or a serious condition, you would be medevac to Belgrade or possibly into Croatia, but probably Belgrade. Podgorica, the capital, has good healthcare. In the bay where we are, within 10 minutes drive, 15 minutes drive, you can get to 2 or 3 private clinics and 1 or 2 government clinics. So it's here. I mean, we've got 450 berths on yachts that come in, and these yachts, they come in occasionally. They've got a 6 member of crew, whatever the case may be. We don't move them around. We just send them to one of the local clinics, or a doctor comes on board. So unless you're going to have, as I say, it's something really serious, you would be fine.
One of our long-time subscribers to BizNews Premium, Hougaard Peters, asks a question. He says, can the ski experience be compared to another destination in Europe?
At the risk of sounding very negative, but the simple answer is no. The skiing is very, very basic. It's nothing like Courchevel or Gestad and Neustift or anything like that. It's very, very basic. It's very, very beautiful, and it's popular, and it's well supported and well run. We have, as a company and as a destination, we actually own a ski chalet that we give to the crew of the yachts that berth with us for winter. We give them free access to it. They love it. We do an annual event called the Super Yacht Winter Games, which is a bit of crew activity. It is incredibly beautiful, but it's not a destination that an avid skier would want to go to.
Sandra and I didn't pop off into a room somewhere. We just, dropped off simultaneously there. Ria Greaves wants to know. She says, I guess COVID-19 hit Montenegro badly relative to tourism. Is that the case? Has it hurt?
Well, there's two sides to that coin. I was in South Africa, in fact, with Sable in February, March. I got back here on the Saturday afternoon. I was put into self-isolation on the Sunday for 2 weeks, and within that period, the country went into lockdown and complete shutdown. Businesses closed, hotels closed, restaurants, etc., etc. The government were very, very proactive. There were 50 cases of COVID registered in the country when they introduced those measures. You couldn't drive between cities. In fact, where I live, I couldn't go to the local supermarket because it was out of the municipal jurisdiction, which is 5 minutes down the road. So I had to stick to local markets, etc. We came out of COVID a few, let's say, probably 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks ago, where the country was declared COVID-free and certain elements, and we've had a second wave. Now, the population is 650,000. We currently, as we speak, are at the peak of our second wave. In the height of the first case, we had just over 200 cases in the country. Right now, we're just under 2,000 cases in the country. We've had minimal, I mean, I don't know the figure off the top of my head, but I think at last count it was 18 deaths. So we've managed it incredibly, incredibly well. And a lot of people have given us a fair amount of criticism where we closed the borders and we wouldn't allow people in. In fact, right now, as we sit and speak, we still closed to the Serbian border. We've opened today to the Russian border, but Russians can't travel into Montenegro. The border between Croatia and Montenegro is open, subject to. You can fly in from anywhere in the world with a test on a private jet. You can fly in from the UK as we speak every Wednesday into Podgorica, and you need to self-isolate when you go back. So there's various little caveats and things, but it has been dealt with incredibly well.
Arno van Veldhoven again asks, how does the price per square meters of these developments compare to normal real estate, which is not part of the approved scheme?
Okay, in Porto Montenegro, our average price per square meter on the higher end property is around anywhere between 6,000 and 8,500 euros per square meter. In Bokke Place, our entry level is 3,850 per square meter, going upwards depending. So it's not something that we've produced around the passport. That is the thing, and I said that right at the beginning. It's important to understand that we've not built this, and we're not building this around the passports. We're building this as an addition and a diversification of product. It's a whole new, it's a game changer within the region. What we're doing in Bokke Place is a complete game changer.
I think this is for you, Sandra. What are the risks to Montenegro's EU incorporation bid, and why does the EU want to intend including them?
Well, first I'll answer the second question. The EU would really like to expand the European Union. One of the reasons is the EU wants to have more countries on their side than on the Russian side. And with Montenegro, Croatia, and Serbia, and not really being part of the whole, or Czechoslovakian, Russian, their government on their own, the EU would really, it's actually all three of those countries they want to incorporate into the EU, which gives them a lot of privileges, and it also gives them, of course, sort of a little finger in the pie into Montenegro. But the way that they give certain things to a country to create and then maintain, like unemployment rate, they shouldn't have a certain amount of debt worldwide and things like that. So in 2014, when they sat at first, the Commission asked Montenegro to do a certain things. which Montenegro did, and they've been maintaining it. So they need to now maintain it for the next 5 years. If we look at especially the citizenship program that was launched end of last year, and not only that, but people from around the world, as Brennan also said, that a lot of people from the United States are investing in Montenegro. If you look at all of that, the company's economy can only go up, especially with the tax that they have. And once a program like this has been launched, a lot more, we spoke about the healthcare system. What normally happens in a country is more private clinics open, more private schools open, more jobs are created. So the chances of them joining the EU is really, really good. There's no reason currently for them not to be allowed to join the EU. So there's the risk that you have is that eventually you only have a Montenegrin passport. You can only live in Montenegro, which is a beautiful country. It's extremely clean. It's very safe. You know, it's one of the countries where I can see myself actually living and moving my family to. So worst case scenario is you've got a really safe and beautiful country that you can live in, and you can still travel Schengen with a passport among 123 countries. So, you know, coming from a South African perspective, there's actually no real risk.
Brilliant.
Sorry, also to mention, first of all, it's a great investment to invest in. So if you simply do it for the investment purposes, it's still a good investment. And should Montenegro join the EU, property prices would definitely go up, and you would gain a lot of value on your investment.
We've got 4 minutes left, and as I say, we literally got a couple of dozen. We're not going to get to all of them, but I'm going to ask you a few quickie. Here's one from Leon for Mark. He says, do you need a visa to visit Australia if you have Montenegrin membership?
Yes, pretty much everybody needs a visa to visit Australia. There's a very few countries that Australia just allows in. So for most European countries, they need visas. In Montenegro would be no different.
Very quick one from Andrew Cairns, who says, apologies, I missed the start. Are there any tax benefits?
9% corporate, 9% personal, no inheritance tax, and minimal capital gains.
I'd say there's some benefits. Michael Mayer wants to know, he says, are dependent adult children included?
Yes, yes. As long as your children is dependent on you and you can prove it, you can include them in the application.
Hannes Miller says, what is the maximum age?
For main applicants for the investment migration programs, for the main applicant, there's normally no maximum age for all of these programs. Some of them have age restriction on children, but normally, as long as they're financially dependent, which normally, again, if they like full-time students, that carries the weight of being financially dependent, or for other reasons, as long as they're dependent on you. So for the main applicant and spouse, there's no age limit like Australia, 55 or anything. No, there's no language, there's no health, there's no age limit, nothing. It's literally, as long as you have a clear police clearance and your source of funds is clear and you can do the investment, you can get citizenship.
Lisa Strapp asks, is the 100,000 euro government fund donation over and above the property investment?
Yes, yes. It's a contribution for the government to actually use and better the infrastructure, create jobs, whatever they feel like the country needs.
And her follow-up is, are there sufficient work opportunities?
Depending on what she does.
I guess, what's the unemployment like?
I wouldn't know the exact figure. I think it was on that slide earlier, but it is pretty low. It's a country where the youth and the as a whole are pretty proactive, pretty active, and they work. And I hire a housekeeper, and she has 3 jobs and speaks 3 languages. So,
well, I'm going to conclude with this question because we now have hit our time limit. But what I will do is pass on the unanswered questions to the Sable team, and I'm sure that they will happily answer those. It is the passport for life from Linda Webster.
Yes, it's fully naturalized citizenship, and it can also be passed on to your future generations. So your children will have full citizenship, and one day when they get married and they have children, they will be registered as Montenegro citizenship. So it creates for family legacy too.
Thank you, Sandra. Thanks, Brennan. Thanks, Andrew. I didn't say too much in this webinar today. Andrew, do you want to have the last word?
Yeah, I would. Thank you, Alec, and thanks for hosting us. And Sandra and Brendan, thanks very much for your inputs. I think just from a Sable perspective, I always say to our clients and prospective clients, it's a complex world out there when you're going international. You know, do your research, understand what your objectives are, take a lot of care, plan, and really speak to professionals who do their due diligence. And you've got our contact details, and good luck with all your planning. And thank you. Thanks for attending.
There's the contact details now on your screen. So if you want to make a quick note of that, we obviously will be publishing a recording of this webinar. But from me, Alec Hogg, it's been my pleasure. Stuart Lohman will give us all those details. Stu, where is the recording going to be?
Excellent, thanks Alec, and thanks to all. Just in the chat box there on the control panel, Alec, I put the YouTube channel, the BizNews YouTube channel link. All our webinars, this one as well as all the others we have done, do get published on that channel. So yes, please visit that one. It should be up in the next couple of hours as well.
So pretty simple. And then that email address, if you can't wait a couple of hours for the recording, im, like im, at sableinternational.com. Until the next time, thanks for being with us. Thanks very much for that fascinating insight from the three of you. I think I now know where Montenegro is, and I now know what it is. 9% tax, no inheritance tax, no little capital gains. Wow. Look forward to the next time. Cheerio.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.